Now, this week's talking point, obviously, it's GDC was happening this week, and Sony made an announcement that we'd been expecting for a while, that they are stepping into the world of virtual reality. Their product is called Project... Sorry, Chris. Their product is called Project Morpheus, which is a consumer-based VR headset that looks, I don't know, it looks kind of swanky. What do you think?
It looks very, very swish and in keeping with all the other kind of PlayStation 4 stuff. It's got the kind of blue LED glow from it. It does look cool.
It looks a lot more kind of, I guess,
nicer
sci-fi than the Oculus Rift.
The Oculus Rift looks kind of utilitarian, like somebody has just, built it. The Morpheus looks like it's had a design team behind it.
Yeah. So I guess some of the things about the Morpheus is that, so the screens... eyeball screens, whatever you want to call them, are HD.
We're stepping into new territory here, Alex.
Exactly. Are HD, so it looks kind of super crisp. So it's obviously going to make the most of like PS4 graphics, etc.
Apparently they're called panels.
Oh, is that right?
Panel resolution.
Okay. But it's also going to work in conjunction with the PlayStation camera and the PlayStation Move, so it will detect kind of leaning, and there will be a lot more to it than the Oculus Rift.
Because Oculus Rift currently doesn't support that, but at CES in January, they announced that there's a new iteration of Oculus Rift called Crystal Cove, which dev kit's going out shortly, which will integrate that kind of leaning motion and like tilt functionality. Yeah.
So obviously our guys in the US have been playing around with it. So Scott Lowe, he was talking that the kit itself is really, really well built, like really good quality, which is what you would expect from Sony. I've only played Oculus a tiny little bit, and it is a prototype, but it feels like it's something that's been strapped together with headphones that pulled together, and who knows what the final product is going to be like. But apparently the Sony thing feels like a proper consumer piece of technology. But the other thing that he said was really, really interesting so far is the tech stuff, the demos, the software that's been shown. So he played a demo called Deep. You play the role of a diver, and you go down into the water inside a shark-proof cage, and apparently it's just like completely immersive. Like you're there, the sounds incredible. You've got sharks swimming past you.
That sounds terrifying.
This is a genuine quote from Scott. He says, "The shark may well be the most lifelike I've ever seen in a game." That's a hell of a quote. Right?
Have we done our top 25 sharks in games? Because as a tentpole, I might take.
Surely the point of this though would be to not put you in a cage. Why would you need to be in a cage if it's virtual?
Protection. Do you want to swim with them?
I don't know.
Protection from what?
You're asking the big questions.
No. But he was saying that even though, so it's in the middle of GDC, so it's a busy show floor, and obviously there's a lot of sound bleed with everything going on. He still said it was like completely immersive and just felt amazing.
So on that point, I'm sure it's super immersive. I read a comparison of that and the Oculus.
Yeah.
Now, currently, the Morpheus has a more narrow viewing angle.
Right.
There's apparently a little bit more light bleed as well. But it's much lighter than the Oculus because the processing is done in a box that sits between the headset and your console. Yeah. So what you're putting on your head is basically just the display. There's no kind of processing going on in there. Right. So again, more user-friendly, I think.
Yeah. So, but actually, earlier this week, we got round to playing with an Oculus for it's a England rugby.
Yeah, it's a project called Where the Rose, which is an initiative by O2 to give people an experience of what it's like to train with the England rugby team, with a view to eventually one day maybe turning it into kind of a sports-based simulator. But we had it in the office, didn't we? And it's the first time you guys had played with an Oculus Rift headset. Yeah, so it's not a game, but we should say it was like just a video. But it was kind of an immersive video because you can turn around stuff.
Yeah, I nearly played one last week in Texas.
Right.
A Game of Thrones Oculus Rift simulator.
Is this a recreation of The Wall or something? Yeah,
but the queue was too big.
Right.
Oh.
The queue's everywhere. So yeah, this was the first time.
Yeah.
So what did you make of it, Alex?
Well, firstly, I thought it was a really clever kind of piece of kit because this video is you're training with the England rugby team, and apparently to get the effect, they had, quote, I believe, a small person, so it felt like you're kind of in with the action with
he has to get the right angle
thing on his head.
It was like it's a custom gimbal with
8 GoPros, I think that's what he said.
Yeah, it was like loads of gimbals mounted on a custom built gimbal rig.
What's a gimbal?
A gimbal, is that something when you move it stabilizes itself?
Is it? Okay, right.
And it was created in conjunction with a guy called David Crone of Unit 9, who is a qualified remote pilot on drone technology. So they had all this footage from GoPros that they then had to like digitally stitch together to create this kind of seamless 3D image, which really does seem seamless.
So that's the thing that I thought was really, really clever, is that so you're there in the middle of a scrum and the ball comes to you, and it's just like looking around and tracking where the ball's going. And obviously in the video, they kind of not force you, but encourage you to look at whoever's talking. But I kind of forgot about that and just
you start looking around, don't you?
And I thought that was, really, really clever. The one thing I will say, so this was based on, original Oculus tech. So it was standard def screens or panels. And when I first got in there, I just thought, ooh, this doesn't look very good. But then you kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
I really want to see what HD panels look like inside that, because I thought the tech was great. I didn't really feel motion sickness, which obviously a lot of people complain about.
I think the motion sickness comes more when you've got a controller and you're controlling it yourself. Because when you've got the analogs, it's easier to disorientate yourself than when you're just looking around with your head. It's when you can like quickly turn around, then you start feeling a bit queasy sometimes.
Right.
I did a little bit. I mean, I don't think we should have tested it out standing in the room we were in front of a glass table, because when I first put it on, I felt really disoriented and I nearly fell forward.
A bit top heavy.
I just would have smashed into the table. So maybe have a bit of space.
So what did you think when the guys like throw a pass to you? You kind of do want to put your hands out, don't you, a little bit?
Yeah, to be honest.
And then you don't want to look like an idiot.
If the bloke hadn't come in and was standing in front of me and was testing it, I would have been doing all that. But as there was someone standing in front of me,
embarrassing,
yeah, I didn't do it. But I wanted to catch it and throw it.
There was definitely a feeling of wanting to dodge when they're charging towards you to tackle you. You kind of wanted to duck out the way. So, I think it's interesting technology. The bigger question is this actually going to make it into the mainstream? Will you sit at home with one of those on your head and actually play it?
I don't know.
Is this going to be the next 3D where so much is invested in it, but actually the uptake by consumers
I think there's some good quotes here. Yoshida, the head of PlayStation, said this may well shape the future of games. So he's kind of hedging himself there. Where meanwhile, there's this other guy called Anton Mikhailov who said we're treating VR as a medium, not a peripheral. So he seems like he's fully behind it, but those two kind of demos that were available at GDC, one is the Deep, there's another one called the Castle, where you can hold two move controllers and you can kind of do a bit of sword play.
Right.
They sound like, I know they haven't had time to build a full game, but they sound like rides and attractions. Yeah. And that's my thing so far about Oculus. The way that it's demoed, because there's a lot of buzz about it and there's not many of them. The way it's demoed, it's like you queue for a ride.
It's an experience.
You put it on, like Valkyrie, you get blasted out with the thing, you shoot some stuff, and then you take it off, you're like, whoa, like you just got off a roller coaster. And that's brilliant. And you get a buzz from that. But then do you want to have a 3-hour gaming session with that on? And that's a slightly bigger proposition.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just a novelty. I've spoken to a few filmmakers who are having meetings about Oculus Rift, about potentially trying to create some kind of movies for it.
I think
which is obviously an idea that they'll be thinking about. But for me, I don't know, all of having to turn around and look behind yourself and stuff. Yeah. It's just going to start getting on my nerves after a while. I mean, I don't know, because we've not done it for long.
Yeah.
But you feel like you just want to see stuff in front of you and not have to keep...
Yeah, I can kind of imagine wearing it at home and not moving around and using the kind of VR stuff too much, but just having... use it to have a massive screen, like you're in the cinema at home without having to get a huge.
Because it is. I know the whole point is, but it's completely absorbing. Like there was a little bit of sound bleed that we had, so I could hear people talking. But overall, it's like wherever you look, apart from again, I think there was a small black area around your body where the cameras didn't pick up. It was like, wow, this is properly incredible. And I can imagine let's say Game of Thrones, you've got a massive fight. Imagine being in the middle of that and looking all around you to see what was going on. But that is it's a roller coaster ride. It's not a way of experiencing.
It's something I'd like to do, like they did with Superman Returns, which was where there were 3 scenes in the movie in 3D. Yeah. I was quite happy doing that, putting my glasses on, taking them off. I would love if all 3D movies were like that for specific scenes. It's a fun way to experience the film, but as for it...
It's really difficult to imagine how it's going to be introduced, because it's not like... 3D is a little bit different. It's kind of... It's technology that goes on top of what there already exists. With this, it would change. It would have to be such a kind of monumental shift in how you actually make things and how you like create them and conceive them, that it's much harder for us to conceive of how we'll use it.
It is way more suited to gaming in that, you know, obviously gamings exist in 3D worlds, so you can drop that camera in anywhere. In movies, you're seeing the director's vision that he wants or she wants you to see. So I just don't know if it's going to work for like mainstream movies.
I feel like we're not convinced, but if you're a developer, this must be really exciting to have this put in front of you and say this is a whole new way of approaching game making.
It's your opportunity to be a pioneer and like do something that nobody's ever done before, which is great. But also there's kind of other implications for it. Like, I think we have a feature actually being written at the moment about how, imagine horror games. Imagine how much more scary and intense that will be.
Constantly looking over your shoulder.
To a point that actually you might not want that experience.
Yeah.
There's a point where that level of immersion is actually counterproductive. Like, you actually don't want to play that, have that experience, because it's too actually real and too traumatic.
But I also think if you look at, I don't know, I went to Disneyland last year and I went on Star Tours. Now that is an old ride and it feels clunky. But imagine, you know, with Star Wars 7 coming out, that is a VR-based ride, and you're in the back of the X-Wing behind whatever, and you're looking around. That would be amazing. I'd love that.
Again, rides sort of stuff,
That's the future.
But that's maybe how it'll start. Like on PSN, you can download the Star Wars experience, you can download the Jurassic Park experience, and that's maybe how it starts to be used by PR companies. They develop these experiences that you can try out for 10 minutes, rather than full-blown games, because, you know, you just channel resources in that way. That's maybe how it starts anyway.
I guess the other kind of key thing is like, how much is the Project Morpheus headset going to cost? They haven't said that. Yeah. But that's the kind of key thing.
Well, apparently they're thinking, because currently it uses LCDs, but the new Oculus uses OLED.
Right.
And apparently that gives a much better experience, but obviously that's more expensive.
Way more expensive, yeah.
So, yeah. There you go.
So, but yeah, I think it's interesting tech. I'm sure they'll show more at E3, so we'll hopefully get our first glimpse and figure out whether it is the future or a fad.